So, have you ever jumped into a live audio chat on X Spaces and just kind of wondered, how private is this really? Well, it turns out a late-night chat between a few longtime users accidentally pulled the curtain back on this, and what they revealed is a pretty massive gap between what we think is happening and what the platform is actually doing. All right, let's get into it.
Okay, so picture this. It's late, a few people are just hanging out, talking in a space. The vibe is super casual, just a relaxed conversation. But then, someone makes this simple, totally innocent request, and it ends up sparking this huge revelation about how the whole platform is built. So, one of the speakers asks the host, "Hey, can you please turn off the recording?" They say that seeing that little recording icon makes them feel kind of uneasy, and they'd just be way more comfortable if it was gone. I mean, that makes total sense, right? We all want to feel safe when we're speaking our minds.
But then, almost immediately, another user just drops this bombshell. It doesn't matter, they're recorded anyways. And right there, that's the central mystery. If turning off the recording doesn't actually stop the recording, then what on earth is that button for?
Now, you don't have to squint and read all the details here. The big takeaway is that these aren't new users just stumbling around. Nope, these folks are part of a whole network that talks about cybersecurity and tech all the time. In other words, these are power users. They're the people who know the system inside and out, all its little quirks, and apparently its secrets.
And as they keep talking, they drop even more clues. They mention that flipping the recording button on and off seems to make the whole space unstable. One guy just casually mentions that his bot can still download the audio file even when the recording is supposedly off. And another one just flat out says, "Look, X isn't here for us to talk to each other, it's for selling ads." It's clear they're all working with information the rest of us just don't have.
And this all leads us to the absolute core truth of this whole situation, a truth that really changes how you ought to think about these online conversations from now on. Which, of course, brings up the big question, if all these experienced users are saying the same thing, can you ever really have a private conversation in an X space? And the answer, according to them, is a hard no. Every single space is recorded by X. Always. That little button you see, that banner that pops up and goes away, it has absolutely zero effect on whether the platform itself is capturing and storing everything you say. And the scale of this is just mind-blowing. To prove his point, one user in the chat says he can access the recordings of 233,000 different spaces. Now, they're not on his personal server or anything, but he says he can pull them directly from X's servers. Just let that sink in. 233,000 conversations.
This is where the implications start to get a lot bigger. Because if every single word you speak in a space is being recorded and stored, well, your voice is no longer just part of a conversation. It's now part of a massive, and let's be honest, a very valuable data set.
The users in the chat even start brainstorming what could be done with all this data. They speculate it could be used to train an AI to perfectly replicate their voices, down to specific emotional tones. Or it could be analyzed for personality traits, maybe even aggression levels. And then they take it a step further, wondering if your voice data could one day be cross-referenced with medical records to predict things like heart failure. All of a sudden, a casual chat doesn't seem so casual anymore.
So let's just break this down for a second, because the disconnect here is huge. We're seeing this massive difference between what the user thinks is happening on their screen and what the platform is actually doing in the background. And this slide just lays it out perfectly. On the left, that's what you see. The host turns the recording off, and a friendly little banner says this space is no longer recorded. But on the right, that's the reality. The recording keeps going on X's servers, and that audio file is still there, ready to be downloaded. It is quite literally a perfect illusion of control.
Which brings us right back to our central mystery. If the button is basically a fake, why does it even exist? Why go to all the trouble of giving users this placebo for privacy? Well, the answer seems to be something we can call social privacy. That button isn't a piece of technology, it's a piece of psychology. Its real job is just to make people feel more comfortable. By getting rid of that little red recording light, it creates a feeling of intimacy, a sense of security, and that encourages people to talk more freely, even if that security isn't technically real at all.
And that really leaves us with one final, pretty big thought. This is just one button on one platform. But it really makes you wonder, doesn't it? Where else in our digital lives are we clicking buttons that are designed not to give us control, but just to give us comfort? What other illusions do we accept as real every single day?